I caught my wife cheating with her ex at a wedding, so I quietly left and made her regret it forever. When I first started dating, my dad gave me some advice. He said, "Son, men of value do not tolerate disrespect, manipulation, or lies from women. Stay true to yourself and always be a man of worth." Unfortunately, there was a change in plans. Love, the merger meeting was moved up, and I have to depart tomorrow morning. I won't be returning until late Sunday. I understand how significant this event is, especially because you are the maid of honor, but I was just elevated to CFO, and missing this meeting will be detrimental to both the firm and our future. "I'm truly sorry," I said. "Are you serious? We've been planning this for so long, and you're canceling at the last minute? I will be there alone." "Do you understand how embarrassing that will be for me? Couldn't someone else go instead?" Vera replied. "This contract is worth more than $2 billion, and I am in charge of it. We've been working hard on it for the past year, and no one else can take my position. Many people's jobs are dependent on our success. I realize that's difficult, but I'll make it up to you with the bonus we'll receive from this deal. I understand that you are upset, but there is nothing I can do. I'll be back Sunday," I explained. Needless to say, she was outraged. She stopped talking to me and instructed me to sleep in the guest room. I did not have any closeness or intercourse prior to my trip, which was not common. Her coldness and rage were out of character. I attempted to comprehend but couldn't calm her down, so I prepared for my trip and stayed the night in the guest room. I knew the wedding was important to her because of her friend Carol's troubles. Carol's ex-husband cheated on her during her life-threatening sickness and then abandoned her because he couldn't bear her delayed recovery. It upset Carol and exacerbated her problem. However, following a miraculous recovery, Carol filed for divorce due to abandonment and suffered despair for the next 5 years. All of her friends and family were there for her, trying to cheer her up, but nothing seemed to help. Then, one day, she met a man at the grocery store, and her world instantly brightened. She reverted to her old self. Her friends' and family's prayers had been answered, and everyone wanted to celebrate the happy event. Brandon, her fiancé, adored her and planned a spectacular wedding. Vera, her best friend and maid of honor, remained by her side throughout. I understood how important this was to Vera, and I regretted having to cancel, but I was helpless. I knew I had to make amends to her and face her rage before departing for my trip. The next morning, I tried to kiss Vera goodnight, but our bedroom door was shut, and she did not open it. I told her how much I loved her and promised to call her when I arrived in Germany. Sadly, I walked to the waiting limo that would take me to the airport. I felt bad and disappointed by her reply. After 19 years of marriage, I still didn't comprehend my condition. I expected greater understanding and compassion. When I called her before my flight, her phone went to voicemail. I left another apologetic message, hoping to receive a response. I texted before takeoff and again after arriving 10 hours later but received no response. I knew she was upset, and I figured I'd have to apologize abundantly to recover her trust. With no other options, I contacted our twin girls at college and explained the situation, asking them to check on their mother and make sure she was okay. I highlighted my concern and the urgency of hearing back from them to allay my fears. They understood and conveyed their love for me. They've always been daddy's girls, and I love them dearly. When I arrived in Germany and settled into the hotel, I called my CEO for an update, only to learn, to my dismay, that the meeting had been canceled owing to the other firm's CEO's family death. I immediately called the airlines and booked a direct trip to Chicago O'Hare, which is only 30 minutes from the reception venue. Because the wedding celebration was scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock in the evening, I calculated that I would be there by 9 o'clock in the evening to be a supportive husband. I believed that this gesture would make her happy. After I got my rental car, the GPS guided me to the reception hall. It was shortly after 9 o'clock in the evening when I arrived. The party was already in full swing. The area was packed with loud music, dancing, and plenty of beverages, with many attendees definitely having a good time and some drinking a little too much. I was glad to be there and looking forward to seeing my wife again. With over 200 people there, it was difficult to spot Vera at first, so I walked to the bar, ordered a double bourbon, and began looking around for her. Thinking back on our voyage together, I realized that Vera was 5 years older than me and had recently divorced when we first met. Her former husband, Dr. Clayton Adams, was completing his residency at Mercy Hospital when their marriage ended due to his infidelity with a nurse from his profession. Vera had thrown him out. Heartbroken by his dishonesty, she had envisioned a life full of children and joy. Her ex-husband's infidelity, however, dashed those hopes. The divorce impacted her hard, both emotionally and financially, because medical residents make little money. The settlement divided what little they had. Vera began working as a waitress to pay her bills. Faced with difficult circumstances, she gained a thorough grasp of Carol's situation. When Vera and I first met, it felt like a storybook romance. I was immediately smitten, despite her past pain and misery. I saw in her a wonderful treasure. Her attractiveness immediately drew my attention, however, it was her love and compassion that ultimately won me over. I helped her overcome her obstacles, transforming her life for the better. We spent 19 wonderful years raising our twin girls with much love. Vera enjoyed my open and honest approach to our connection. We constantly discussed the importance of loyalty and commitment, which provided her with a sense of security. I highlighted my admiration for faithfulness and my contempt for infidelity, commending her for having the fortitude to leave her cheating husband. I admired her resilience in getting through that terrible moment. Our marriage was founded on trust, loyalty, and dedication, which kept us together until the unexpected incident at the wedding. Vera was still incredibly gorgeous at 44, and I, 5 years her junior, was in peak physical condition because of my dedication to fitness and jogging. At 39, I felt like I was at the peak of my life. Our intimate relationship was solid, and the age gap between us was never an issue. Our twin daughters, Mara and Carrie, were thriving at college, full of life and optimistic about their futures. We had a happy, loving family and a marriage that appeared unshakable. That was until I noticed Vera at the wedding, sitting alone with her ex-husband Clayton. I knew Clayton was close with the bride, Carol, but his attendance at the wedding, particularly without his wife, surprised me. I was fatigued from my travels and fascinated about what I was witnessing. I paused to observe them intently, noting how friendly they appeared together, regardless of their history. I decided to step back for a moment to get a better idea of how they were engaging. It wasn't long before I felt like my world was falling apart. I was ready to intervene and disrupt their intimate moment when she abruptly rose, took his hand, and led him to the dance floor. Vera looked stunning in her tailored ivory gown, and I dearly hoped this was nothing more than a dance. Her confidence as they proceeded through numerous slow songs took me by surprise. I sat back, nursing my drink, and watched how things progressed. Vera had clearly been drinking, as seen by her flirting demeanor, which I knew could happen. She'd often get more loving and playful with me after a few drinks, which was typical for her. However, openly kissing another man, especially in front of her friends, was not normal or acceptable behavior. I was fully aware that she was my wife. This act of betrayal left me feeling both ashamed and outraged. Watching my wife share private moments, as well as watching him touch her improperly and exchange kisses with her, left me stunned and angry. I became enraged, and just as I was going to intervene and stop it, they returned to a table off to the side and began kissing as if they were on their honeymoon. I could clearly see his hands on her chest and her hand under the table. Just as I was about to approach them, I realized my marriage was over. I remembered what my father often said, "Hey guys, respect yourself. Do not put up with being treated poorly." So, I resolved to do something, but I remained calm. I could have made a big deal, ruined the ideal wedding, stopped them, and ensured it didn't go any further. But then I figured, if she wants him, she can have him. She isn't mine anymore. I'm feeling unusually tranquil. I got out my phone, zoomed in, and recorded several close-up photos and a brief video. Then I messaged her, "Guess what, sweetheart? My meeting was rescheduled, and I returned early. It appears that you are in good hands tonight. I'll go back home. I'm guessing you'll be spending the night with Dr. Clayton. I got it now why you've been avoiding my calls and texts. Have a blast, and here's to our marriage ending. I'll be gone by the time you get back tomorrow." I hit send and waited calmly to see if she received the message while watching her. I noticed her phone light up. She noticed, picked it up, and began pressing buttons, obviously looking for the words. Vera quickly sobered up, her expression serious when she saw my message. As soon as I saw her reaction, I left the gathering for my car. Vera must have spooked upon seeing me go, but I got outside before she could catch up. As I got in my car, I heard her yell, "Tony, please wait." I just gave her a chilly look, shook my head, got into my car, and drove away before she caught up. My phone started ringing, but I was too upset to answer. If she decided to return to her ex, it was evident that we were done. After capturing them together, we were done. It's been 22 years since I left that cheater, and she still returns to him at the first opportunity. She'll have to explain this disaster to our family and the kids because it's her fault. My phone was filling up with urgent text messages. "Tony, please come back. I need to explain. I love you. Please come back." "Damn it, Tony, it's not as you think. I love you." But after 2 days of long flights, no calls or texts, her frigid demeanor, and seeing her with Clayton, I had no desire to hear her out. I was furious and refused to deal with her or her justifications. After ignoring 20 calls and texts, I eventually stopped and returned one text message. It said, "Forget you. I'm doing excellent at my job. My children are off to college and everything is paid for. I am free to do as I like." I still have enough youth to begin again. After driving for 4 hours of my 7-hour drive back to Nashville, I stopped at a diner for dinner and a little nap in the car before continuing my trek home. While eating my eggs and bacon, I decided to share my sentiments with the world. At the time, Facebook was the most popular social networking platform where people exchanged updates about their lives. Between bites, I updated my Facebook status from happily married to single and available. Then I shared 2 images I had taken of Vera and Clayton kissing passionately at the wedding. In the second photograph, his hand is plainly on her breast. Below the photo, I commented that Vera was upgrading and rejoining with her ex-husband while I was returning to the dating scene. It may have been immature, but to me, it was the truth. I was moving forward without her. The weird thing is that her ex, Clayton, was nearly 50, balding, overweight, and frankly not an upgrade in any manner. It's puzzling that she did it for an old man who had already cheated on her. Or perhaps she preferred a doctor to an accountant. Honestly, it stung. It ached a lot. I was in greater pain than I could ever remember. I felt sad and outraged, but it also seemed ludicrous. She is terminating a 19-year marriage with an elderly man who cheated on her over 20 years ago. Forget her. Forget him. They are made for each other. I'm not the sort to tolerate such disrespect. Some may think it was simply a kiss and some caressing, and it isn't worth leaving her. In my opinion, either my girlfriend is committed to me or she has the freedom to be with another person. We all make our own decisions. Following my late breakfast and 2-hour siesta in the van, I started the road again and pulled into my driveway around 7 o'clock in the morning. When I turned on my phone, it began sifting through dozens of alerts. There were so many that I didn't think they'd stop. There had to be at least 100 messages from her parents, her sister, and friends. Within 5 minutes of turning on the phone, it began ringing, and I realized it was Vera. I wondered if she slept last night or spent it with Clayton. No matter. I ignored her calls because I was over it and merely wanted to get out of the house and move on. I got along well with her family, so when they contacted me that morning, I answered the call and told her father what had happened. James, I had no indication she was dissatisfied with our marriage, but adultery was the final blow to our happy existence. I cannot take her contempt in front of people we know. She clearly still has affections for that jerk, and now she can be with him. I intend to find a woman who will appreciate what I bring to the table and remain loyal. James, I don't have any other options. I'll move out today and immediately put the house up for sale tomorrow morning. I'll contact a lawyer to begin the divorce proceedings. She can stay here until the house is sold, and I will make sure the divorce is fair. Call me old-fashioned, but I refuse to live with a lady who wants someone else. She made her decision, but I do not believe it was wise. James arrived more than 1 hour later, pleading with me to wait and talk to her before taking severe action. But when he begged me to give her a chance to explain, I referred to the photo of them, 2 of them openly fondling each other at the wedding. I couldn't stand it, especially with her ex. Her father was upset with her conduct and my hasty decision-making. As I entered our home, I felt tears rise as I realized that our once happy home had become an empty shell of our marriage. Over the last 5 years, we had changed our house into our perfect home. Mortgage rates were lower than 2.99% at the time, and our home had doubled in value. As the accountant, I chose to refinance the home at its full value, resulting in approximately $500,000 in equity. I instantly established $200,000 trust funds for each of our daughters' college educations, plus a little extra to help them get started in life. The remaining $100,000 was spent on renovating the house, making it a place we enjoyed and were proud of. Because of the lower interest rate, our monthly payment increased by only $1,700 from before we withdrew the equity. It was a simple choice, and Vera went back to work as a receptionist to fund the additional monthly expenses. My compensation was reasonable, but as the newly promoted CFO, I would be granted stock options the next year, which would act as our retirement fund. Vera had no interest in our finances as long as her needs were addressed, trusting my financial skills while living comfortably. Although I attempted to explain the stock options multiple times, her lack of interest was obvious, but it didn't concern me too much. I looked forward to our future. Fortunately, this merger, which coincided with the breakup of my marriage, guaranteed a bonus in stock options worth approximately 40,000 shares. If successful, I would have to wait several years to exercise my options, but the prospect of the stock reaching $100 a share strengthened my confidence for the future. Because the merger was delayed, the options would not be considered in the divorce settlement. I wanted to file for irreconcilable differences and split our assets, which totaled roughly $50,000 in savings. We would divide the money from the sale of the house, but it was heavily mortgaged, so there wasn't much to divide. If Vera remained true, she would be able to leave with her car and $25,000. At the age of 44, she may have lived a loving life with a solid future. However, my rage and humiliation had surpassed any attachment or memories I had for her. All I wanted was revenge, and for her to understand how much she had lost. I hadn't seen Clayton in 20 years, and seeing him again brought back a lot of memories, both good and sad. He used to be my spouse, and we had a great connection until he became unfaithful, which terminated our marriage. We had a deep connection and were quite close, but he was not as important to me as Tony. Tony, my current husband, is more beautiful, a great partner, and I adore him. However, I found myself with Clayton, allowing him to embrace and kiss me, which I knew wasn't appropriate. I kept flirting with him while knowing I shouldn't. I guess I drank too much and was disappointed that Tony wasn't here with me. I should have stopped, but it felt good. Clayton still seemed like the perfect match for me in some respects. I thought a little flirtation was okay. Furthermore, Clayton is now single, and Tony has not changed his plans to join me for this significant wedding, so I felt I deserved some pleasure. After Clayton kissed me again, I felt happy on the inside. His kisses reminded me of past times, and I felt delighted as we danced close together in a secret space. I figured a little kissing and proximity was fine because everyone else was enjoying the party and wouldn't notice us. I intended to make things right with Tony later. Suddenly, I received an SMS on my phone when all of my friends were present. Tony might have been checking in on me, and Tony's message claimed he was here. I didn't notice him at first, but I thought I saw him leave. I panicked, thinking I wanted to explain myself, but fearing he'd seen me with Clayton. In a state of bewilderment, I told Clayton that I needed to use the ladies' room. I dashed out of the wedding reception, my pulse beating. I noticed the exit door slowly swinging shut down the hall and dashed for it. My high heels clicked against the floor, and I recognized Tony, who had seen me with Clayton. I begged him to wait, but he did not reply. He simply got into his car and departed. I attempted to pursue him, but it was too late. His automobile was already moving away. Now he ignores my phone calls and texts. I've sent him numerous messages, but he has not responded to any. He's really upset, and I can't say I don't see why. After attempting to contact him several times and sending 10 more texts, my heart plummeted when I finally received an answer from him that was harsh. Forget you. 2 of my buddies discovered me kneeling outside in the severe cold, wondering what had gone wrong. After I told them everything, they were both horrified by what I had done and concerned about the consequences for my marriage. They knew Tony well enough to know he was not going to let this go easily. The next morning at 10 o'clock in the morning in Nashville, I started packing my belongings. Seated at the kitchen table, I savored one final cup of coffee at the house. We had returned home with feelings of despair and rage. I finished by leaving the empty cup in the sink and writing a little note for her. In it, I told her not to call me and that we'd talk when the divorce paperwork was prepared. I didn't even sign the note. Instead, I left my wedding ring on top as a final gesture before leaving for good. I opened my laptop and distributed our funds. I also deleted our shared credit card after paying off the balance. She was solely responsible for herself starting today. If she contests the divorce, she will be responsible for all of the bills on her own. She couldn't manage the mortgage and utilities on her own. The house would sell quickly at the proper price because it was in high demand. If she agreed to the divorce, we could quickly end this disastrous marriage and allow her to return to her cherished Clayton. I drove out from my previous haven into an unexpected, gloomy new world. My buddies at the wedding later told me that Vera was upset when I departed. She couldn't stop crying until she passed out from excessive drinking and weariness from her uncontrollable sobbing. Her pals were concerned and felt bad for her. They tried to contact me several times, sending voicemails and texts to keep her from disrupting the wedding reception. They returned her to her hotel room, put her to bed, and checked on her many times over the night. When she woke up the next morning and understood what had happened, she contacted me several times, pleading for forgiveness and asking me to call her back. However, after witnessing her behavior, I refused to associate with her and disregarded all of her attempts to contact me. On Sunday morning, I awoke with a bad hangover and the threat of divorce hanging over me. I traveled home at lunchtime and was picked up by my father from the airport. Later, I learned that Tony had informed my father that he would be unable to bring me up and that he needed a ride himself. My father's anxious expression indicated that I must have looked dreadful. My father was my source of strength, so when I spotted him, I rushed over to hug him and cry on his shoulder. "Daddy, I botched up, and I believe Tony left me," I said with a sorrowful expression. He kindly consoled his distraught daughter. "I spoke with him this morning, and it doesn't look promising. What were you thinking, Tony, and with Clayton?"
"I'm not sure what happened. I was intoxicated and angry at Tony for not attending the wedding."
"Daddy, I realize I made a mistake, but he must forgive me. I did not even sleep with him," I said. "Dear, from the photographs I saw, it may have been the same. I'm not sure he is the forgiving type, especially knowing Tony. Even being with another man like that in those photos was betrayal for him, he replied. When I got home, I hoped to find Tony waiting for me, but I knew he had already left. I spent the day in tears, attempting to reach Tony and apologize. The irony hit me hard when I realized I had cheated on Tony with the man who had betrayed me years before. Tony, the man I loved and valued, seems to have fled in a second. His wedding band, which was left on the table with a small note, proved this truth. Meanwhile, because the company's condo designated for visiting clients was not booked, I moved in. I notified my CEO of my predicament, and he approved my stay there. My supervisor, Bill, who is also a close friend, faced a similar circumstance years ago. He even recommended I postpone getting this year's stock options until a later date to gain an advantage. The next day, I went to my office on the 16th floor, knowing that Vera would not be able to get past security to see me. I had already informed the security personnel that if she tried to enter, they should respectfully accompany her out. They did an excellent job, and when Vera went to come on Monday, she immediately understood that she would be unable to see or speak with me at work. Despite her efforts, I was determined not to contact her. She was left in the dark about where I was staying and unable to contact me by phone. She felt alienated, regretful, and afraid about what was ahead for her. In the midst of this, my daughters panicked and begged me to talk with their mother. I told them strongly but gently that their mother had chosen to be with someone else, which I considered a blatant betrayal. Before they could dispute, I made it obvious that I take infidelity very seriously. I emphasized that what their mother did constituted cheating in my perspective. My daughters understood my position and respected my decision. I attempted to make them understand that their mother's decisions had consequences, and that our divorce was unavoidable. However, I assured them that I would always be there for them and wished to keep them in my life. I also taught them a lesson, hoping they would remember to always respect their future spouses and understand the seriousness of betrayal, as many people would not tolerate such disrespect. Several unexpected events occurred after I shared a post on Facebook. My friends and family were calling, wanting to know what was going on, but something else happened. I suddenly became very popular among women. I began going out with women who were younger than me, full of energy and excitement, something I hadn't had in years. Vera's constant complaints and negativity were replaced by exciting dates, affectionate text messages, and attention from women who simply wanted to have fun. A month after that post, I met Cheryl, who would eventually become my wife. We hit it off and became a couple shortly after my divorce from Vera was official. Vera was not pleased when she learned about my new life. She was mostly upset with herself, but she was also jealous and upset that I didn't give her another chance before moving on. I refused all of her requests to meet and only dealt with her through our lawyers. We eventually sold the house. After paying the real estate agent fees and other selling expenses, there was little money left over, less than $1,000 in equity. I decided Vera should receive that small amount. The lawyers worked hard to obtain a portion of my future earnings, but the court ruled that they could not base the settlement on what I might earn later. Instead, they calculated my average income to determine how much I should pay. Vera had a job, so paying alimony would not be difficult. In the end, I agreed to pay her $22,000 per month for 2 years. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get her by until she could stand on her own again or until she met someone else, who was obviously not going to be me. In the years that followed, Vera and I never spoke directly but rather through our lawyers. She relocated to Chicago, where she joined a support group and eventually began living with Dr. Clayton, whom she had become close to. She wasn't as happy as she had been with me. She was aware of the consequences of her actions, which were motivated by anger and selfishness, but she still made a poor decision. She hadn't been intimate with Clayton that night, but she treated our marriage as if she were single again. 3 years later, at our daughter's graduation, Vera met my new wife, Cheryl, who was 28 and pregnant, along with our 1-year-old daughter, Jolene. Vera, now 47, appeared much older, and Dr. Clayton, who had come with her, stayed behind. Vera eventually managed to speak to me alone after realizing the situation. She wanted to apologize, regretting her actions and the life we could have had together. She recognized the error of jeopardizing our perfect life for nothing. I told Vera that I had forgiven her. While I never expected to find her in someone else's arms, I expressed gratitude for the good times we had, our 2 beautiful daughters, and the love we shared. Vera's actions, as painful as they were, led me to Cheryl and the formation of a new family, which helped me overcome my anger. I advised her to focus Bracelet on her future, assuring her that our past was behind us. I wished her well and expressed a desire to see her at future family gatherings. Cheryl joined me at that moment, holding our daughter, and I took the opportunity to introduce them. Their ages were clearly different. Vera, 47, could have easily been mistaken for Cheryl's mother. This realization made Vera regret even more the choices she made that led her to lose the love of her life over a single night of anger and selfishness. Over the next decade, we met again at our daughter's weddings. Vera remained unmarried but continued to live with Clayton, who treated her well. However, seeing me with my new family and our young daughters stirred up old, fond memories for her. The happy life she once had with me was now just a memory, leaving her to live out her days filled with regret for the love and happiness she lost. In a twist of fate, that summer, after cashing in my stock options, I bought back the old family home when it came back on the market. My entire family and friends, Vera excluded, were thrilled that the house, filled with so many of our memories, was ours once again. My daughters especially enjoyed visiting, reminiscing about their childhood in that loving home. It's unfortunate that Vera chose a different path. She would have cherished continuing the life we once envisioned together. Nonetheless, life moves forward, and I'm enjoying building a new life and creating new memories with Cheryl and our daughters. It's a lesson learned. Before you decide to wrong someone, be sure you'll never need them again. 10 years had passed since the fateful night at Carol's wedding, and Tony's life had transformed in ways he never imagined. The pain of Vera's betrayal had dulled, replaced by the vibrant energy of his new family and the success he'd achieved as CFO. His decision to walk away from a marriage that no longer honored his values had been difficult but liberating. Now, at 49, Tony stood at the peak of his personal and professional life, living in the family home he'd repurchased, surrounded by his wife Cheryl, their 2 daughters, Jolene and Lily, and the love of his adult twins, Mara and Carrie. Cheryl, now 38, had brought a freshness to Tony's world that he hadn't realized he'd been missing. Her optimism and adventurous spirit complemented his disciplined, grounded nature. Together, they'd built a life filled with laughter, travel, and the chaos of raising young children. The family home, once a symbol of his shattered dreams with Vera, was now alive with new memories. Jolene's finger, painted masterpieces on the fridge, Lily's impromptu dance performances in the living room, and Cheryl's gardening experiments in the backyard. Mara and Carrie, now in their late 20s, often visited, their presence bridging the past and present. They'd grown into strong, independent women, and Tony took pride in knowing he'd been a steady influence through their turbulent college years. Professionally, Tony's gamble on the merger had paid off handsomely. The stock options he'd secured after the divorce had skyrocketed in value, allowing him to retire early if he chose. Instead, he took on a consultancy role, mentoring young executives and investing in startups. His financial acumen, honed over decades, gave him the freedom to focus on what mattered most, his family and his passion for giving back. He'd started a scholarship fund for underprivileged students in Nashville, a nod to his own humble beginnings and the lessons his father had instilled about self-worth and resilience. Vera's life, however, had taken a different trajectory. At 57, she lived quietly in Chicago with Clayton, who had retired from his medical practice. Their relationship, born from a moment of reckless nostalgia, had settled into a comfortable but unremarkable routine. Vera worked part-time as a receptionist, a job that kept her busy but lacked the fulfillment she'd once found in her marriage to Tony. The alimony payments had ended years ago, and while she'd managed to save some money, her financial stability depended heavily on Clayton. She often wondered what her life might have been like had she not let anger and wine cloud her judgment that night. Vera's regret was a constant companion, especially when she saw Tony at their daughters' weddings. Mara's wedding, a joyous affair in a vineyard outside Nashville, had been particularly poignant. Tony had walked Mara down the aisle, his pride evident in every step. Vera, seated a few rows back with Clayton, felt a pang of longing as she watched Tony laugh with Cheryl and their young daughters. The contrast between her life and Tony's was stark. His was vibrant and full, while hers felt like a shadow of what could have been. Carrie's wedding 2 years later was no easier. Vera had hoped time would soften the ache, but seeing Tony's family grow only deepened her sense of loss. Despite her mistakes, Vera had worked hard to rebuild her relationship with Mara and Carrie. The twins had been devastated by their parents' divorce, caught between loyalty to their mother and respect for their father's principles. Over time, Vera's consistent apologies and efforts to be present in their lives had mended some of the wounds. She attended their graduations, birthdays, and holidays, always careful not to overstep or bring up the past. The twins, now professionals in their own right, Mara a lawyer, Carrie a graphic designer, appreciated their mother's efforts but remained closer to Tony, who had been their rock during the chaos of the divorce. One summer evening, as Tony and Cheryl hosted a barbecue for friends and family at the family home, an unexpected visitor arrived. Vera had been invited by Mara, who believed it was time for her parents to find some closure. Tony was surprised but didn't object. He'd long since forgiven Vera, though he had no desire to rekindle their friendship. Cheryl, ever gracious, welcomed Vera warmly, sensing the older woman's nervousness. The backyard was buzzing with activity, kids running through sprinklers, music playing softly, and the smell of grilled burgers in the air. Vera stood on the patio, clutching a glass of lemonade, her eyes scanning the familiar space. The oak tree where Mara and Carrie had once built a treehouse still stood, now adorned with a swing for Jolene and Lily. The garden, once her pride and joy, had been transformed by Cheryl's modern landscaping. It was the same home, yet entirely different. Tony approached Vera, sensing her unease. "It's good to see you," he said, his tone neutral but kind. "The girls wanted you here, and I'm glad you came." Vera nodded, her throat tight. "Thank you, Tony. This place, it's beautiful. You've done so much with it." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Finally, Vera spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've never stopped regretting what I did. I threw away everything for a moment of stupidity. I want you to know I'm sorry, and I'm happy you found someone who makes you happy." Tony studied her, seeing the lines etched on her face, the weariness in her eyes. He felt no anger, only a distant sadness for the woman he'd once loved. "I forgave you a long time ago, Vera," he said. "We both made choices. Yours hurt me, but they led me here. I wouldn't trade this life for anything." Vera's eyes glistened, but she managed a small smile. "You always were the better person. I'm trying to be better, for the girls, for myself. That's all any of us can do," Tony replied. He gestured toward the crowd. "Come on, join us. Mara and Carrie would love to see you." The evening passed without incident, a small step toward healing for Vera, and a testament to Tony's ability to move forward without bitterness. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the backyard, Tony watched his daughters, old and new, laughing together. Cheryl slipped her hand into his, and he squeezed it, grateful for the life they'd built. For Vera, the visit was bittersweet. She left the barbecue with a sense of closure, knowing she'd never fully reclaim what she'd lost but determined to find peace in her own way. She returned to Chicago, where she began volunteering at a women's shelter, channeling her regret into helping others rebuild their lives. It wasn't the grand life she'd once envisioned, but it was meaningful, and for the first time in years she felt a spark of purpose. Tony, meanwhile, looked to the future. The family home, once a battleground of heartbreak, was now a sanctuary of love and second chances. As he tucked Jolene and Lily into bed that night, he thought of his father's words, "Men of value do not tolerate disrespect." He'd honored that advice, not out of pride, but out of a deep belief in his own worth. And in doing so, he'd found a life richer than he could have imagined. Thank you for taking the time to hear today's story. If you love the story, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a tale to share regarding your own or someone else's circumstance, please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.